everyone, and my name is Hila, and today we're gonna read Magic Tria's Earthquake in early morning. And today we're gonna read chapter 3, The Great Shake, and then I'm reading it chapter 5, okay? Because we're reading it two chapters in one book. Now, are you ready to read this one book with a lot of stories? Now, here we go. And first, you can read Magic Tria's Earthquake in the early morning. Chapter 3, The Great Shake. A cloud of dust blurred around Jack. He could hardly breathe. He couldn't see, but he could hear Annie coughing. Jack opened his mouth to call her, but dust filled his throat. Jack, between cups. Annie shouted his name. Jack, I'm here, he said hoarsely. I think I'm in trouble, she said. Jack tried to stand up. He hurt all over. His clothes were ripped and covered with a dirt, and his cap was gone. Where are you? He said. Here, said Annie. Jack started to stand, but he fell down again. His legs were like rubber. Where? He replied. Jack cleaned his glasses and looked around, but he still couldn't see any through the thick haze of dust. I fell into the ground, said Annie. Jack heard with the direction of Annie's voice. Keep talking, he said. Here, she coughed. Here! Jack felt a ledge of his hands, and he looked down to a huge crack of the street. Through the dust he could see Annie right below him. You found me, she said between cups. I'll pull you out, said Jack. He grabbed Annie's hands. He tried to pull her out of the crack, but she was too heavy. I can do it, he said. Bring me some to stand on, Annie said. Maybe I can get out by myself. And Jack stood up and stumbled away from the crack. He gathered an armload of bricks. Then he went back to the crack and handed them to Annie one by one. Annie carefully stacked the bricks on the top of each another. I need more, she said. And Jack and Annie got more bricks. He was afraid there was another earthquake in the crack would close with Annie inside. He handed the bricks down her. Hurry, he said. I'm hurrying, she said. At last, Annie was finished stacking the bricks. As soon as she stacked with her bare hands, she slowly pulled off herself. Jack helped her stand. She was covered with dirt. Her stockings was torn. Her knees were skinned. Are you hurt? Jack said. A little scrapped, said Annie. How about you? A little shaky, said Jack. And actually, he was very shaky. Me too, said Annie. I think San Francisco was just a really huge earthquake, Jack said. He coughed. His throat was clogged with dust. Annie coughed too. What's the book say? She said. Jack pulled out a research book out of his leather bag. His hands were trembling. She could hardly turn the pages. I will find it, said Annie. She took the book from him and then found a picture of a turn-up street. And she read aloud. At 5:13 a.m. on April 18 and 1906, the people of San Francisco were shaken away by one of the biggest earthquakes in the United States has ever known. Some called it Great Shake. No wonder we feel shaky, said Jack. I wonder if a lot of people got hurt, said Annie. They looked around. Through the dust filled the air, and the families scrambled up their another scrambled houses. They were in barefoot and still more night clothes. Some babies and their little children were crying, but strangely, grown-ups are all silent. They were staring at the turn of the street and crumbling houses. Everyone Must be in shock, said Annie. I know how they feel, said Jack. He gazed in the rubble all around them. He didn't know what to do. He could think clearly, and Annie looked at a book again. She read aloud. Just after an earthquake, broken chimneys and strips and lamps caused with the terrible flies, so fires are raging for 3 days nearly, describing all of in the San Francisco. Over 2,008,000 buildings burned down. That was terrible, breathed Jack. In the distance, a cloud and black smoke was rolling in the sky. The fires are starting, said Annie. Chapter 4, what's the story? Now let's start chapter 4 now. Maybe we should leave, Jack said. In a panic, he wanted to get out of San Francisco's before the fire. Afraid. We can, said Annie. We have to find our special writing for Morgan's Library, something to land. Let's find fast, said Jack. He and Annie started walking toward the rubble, and Jack stepped in the piles of the bricks and chunks in the concrete and broken glass. There were fallen lamps and twisted trolley car tracks. There saw houses and leaning one side and people hauling their things out of the street. We can't worry about the mission now, Annie said. We have to help. Help? How? Said Jack. They're so shaky. He didn't think he could be much help to anyone. What about them? Said Annie. She pointed to some frantically dragging backs out of the building and pulling them into a horse-drawn wagon. And Annie ran over to a wagon. What are you doing? She said to the man. We're trying to get this bank backs down in the hurl. The wagon driver said, and so the boat can take him out in the bay. Why? Said Jack. So we can save everyone's money from the fires, the man said. And he pointed to the sky. The clouds of the smoke was growing bigger and blacker. Can we help? Said Jack. We're done, said driver. You kids run home and your parents. Then get out of your city. And Jack wished he and Annie could ride with the driver down in the bay and be safe from the fires too, but he could see the wagon didn't have a room for them. Good luck, said Annie. Don't forget I was told you, driver said, and then he and the horses took off. The wagon turned into Main Street and then disappeared in a hill. I wonder what we can help, said Annie. And Jack took a deep breath. I don't know, he said. Maybe I will take some notes. Jack pulled his notebook and wobbly handwriting he wrote, bank money wagon to bay, then boat. Hey, what's the story? The woman said. Her voices kind of agreed. And Jack looked up. The man and woman stood in front of them. The woman wear a very long dresses with a carried notebook. Oh, what is this man and this lady doing at a San Francisco city? And the man wore a suit. He was carrying a big camera with a three-legged stand. What's a story? Said Annie. The story with a bank. My name is Betty. I'm a reporter, said woman. For television, said Annie. What's that? Said Betty. Never mind, said Jack. He whispered quickly to Annie. She was a newspaper reporter. TV hasn't been invented yet. Oops, said Annie. So what's the story with a wagon that just have left in a bank? Betty, said Jack and Annie. And Jack looked down a notebook. We're going to save our money. by taking the bag and putting into a boat, he said. The reporting work, Sonny, she said. Get a picture of a bank, Ray. The photographer set his camera on the stand, and he put his head under a back curtain and took a picture. Got it, said Fred, as the photographer packed up and equipment. Betty turned to Jack and Annie. Go home and get your parents, kids, she said. A fire there burning out of control. We know, said Annie, by the end of the 3 days, the fires are burned out nearly all of San Francisco. And Betty looked curious. How do you know that? She said. She was just guessing, Jack said quickly. Pretty gloomy, does, said Betty. Tell your folks not catch you at a ferry. 12 were curled in a ferry building. Go to Golden Gate Park. Thanks for the tip, said Annie. Thanks for the story, said Becky. And then she and Fred hurried away, and Jack and Nanny looked around. How many people seemed to be filling their homes? Some were going up to the hill, and some were going down, and an old woman was pushing a wheelbarrow filled with pots and pans, and a girl was carrying a suitcase with a cat, and a boy was carrying a bird cage and a fishbowl. They're going to a different decoration, said Annie. I wonder there's a Golden Gate Park is, said Jack. Maybe you should go there. Let's see if there's a map in our book. Jack and Annie looked their research book. He found a map of San Francisco. Where are we go now? He said. He was looking for a street, a sign. He saw the man carrying an armload of people of books out of a beautiful building. The man was putting the books out of a back horse's drum wagon. What's he doing? Asked Jack. I bet they're saving those books, said Annie. Saving books? Said Jack. He loved books for a moment. Jack forgot his fears. Jack forgot about trying to save himself. We'd better help, he said. Come on. Oh, I think Jack wants to save himself, but Annie wants to help someone. Now, chapter 5, stop. And chapter 5 will the end reading. Chapter 5 will started at tomorrow, and then the end reading in chapter 7 tomorrow, okay? Now, did you have fun? Yours English Country come back with some this book, but not this story because it might be a new chapter to read, okay? And now, please thumbs up my YouTube, and now bye-bye, everybody, and have a nice day every time. Bye!